I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, here in Oregon, we have a long and much loved tradition of being able to create citizen petitions and pretty much pass our own laws without the help of the legislature. But sometimes putting those laws into action, that can be a bit of a bumpy ride. And no, I'm not talking about our drug decriminalization law, Measure 110, although I guess it does apply there as well. Instead, I'm talking about the gun control law, Measure 114. It's facing some big constitutional questions, but even when those are worked out, a small but still important side issue may still trip it up. And that's our big story tonight. We're still waiting to hear from the state judge in Southeast Oregon on that big question, whether he thinks Measure 114 violates the state constitution. The court case is keeping the measure on ice for now. But even if the judge decides it does not violate the state constitution, it could still be in trouble. And not because of the appeals, which have basically been promised at this point, but there's a very good chance the FBI will not run background checks, which is explicitly required under Measure 114. Now, I recently talked with the FBI special agent in charge of Oregon, Kieran Ramsey. He said the Bureau wants to help, but until the wording of 114 is changed, he says it's not able to get involved because of a federal law controlling which groups it can share criminal background information with.
In Section 4 of Measure 114, it says that it authorizes state and local agencies, specifically state and local law enforcement agencies, to receive this criminal background information, and then it adds, or their quote-unquote designee.
And that's the problem.
We can't define or designee because the only agencies that we are allowed to share back our criminal investigative background information is with, in fact, state and local government agencies. Generally speaking, that's law enforcement agencies, but it could be other government agencies. But in this case, that or designee is an issue. Could that be a private party? If that's the case, it doesn't comport with 92-544.
Okay, because the federal law says you can't share it with a private party.
It says that we only can share it with state or local government agencies. Okay. And that's where this becomes, again, very nuanced. It's not about us not wanting to work with the Oregon State Police. I have a great relationship with the Oregon State Police. It's not about wanting to work with the sheriffs or the chiefs. We have phenomenal relationships across the entire state. It's not even about working with the state of Oregon. We work with, in fact, a lot of different agencies within the state of Oregon's government structure. It's simply Measure 114 has to comport with Public Law 92-544.
All right, well, the wording in the actual document is not quite as clean as he presents it there, but let's take a look and you'll see what he means. At the top of Section 4 for Measure 114, it says a person may apply for a permit to purchase a firearm or firearms under this section to the police chief or the county sheriff with jurisdiction over the residence of the person making the application. And if it had stopped there, the FBI would probably be fine with that part of things, but it doesn't. It goes on to say, or their designees, which is what throws a monkey wrench into the eyes of the FBI. Farther down the page, and still under Section 4, we see the permit agent, which remember could be law enforcement or their designee, which means that could be someone who's not law enforcement, shall request the department to conduct a criminal background check, include but not limited to fingerprint identification through the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And the FBI argues if that was followed through, the designee, again, maybe somebody not in law enforcement and not an official of the state or local government, well, that person could get the results of the criminal background check, and that would violate the public law that he mentioned. Now, I looked up that public law. It's kind of detail-y, but here it is, good old Public Law 92-544. It was written to allow the FBI to help by running national criminal background checks for non-criminal licensing or employment issues, which this is, and it states right at the top that the FBI is empowered to exchange identification records with officials of state and local governments. They underlined those words, by the way, not me. But that would include law enforcement and others, but not, for example, the owner of a gun store or any other civilian. So that's one of the big issues the FBI says they have with Measure 114 implementation. Someone not in law enforcement or not an official or state of a state or local government could get the results of the criminal background check the way Measure 114 is written today. And while we're looking at the FBI's arguments for not running those background checks, here's one other problem they point to. Back with our old friend, Public Law 92-544, it says the FBI can share records if authorized by a state statute. And then below that, it says the state statute must exist as the result of legislative enactment or its functional equivalent. Now, the FBI legal folks are apparently trying to decide if a referendum passed by the people of Oregon is a legislative enactment. I'm going to guess it's not. Or the functional equivalent. On that, I'm guessing the answer is yes. Not that anybody's listening to me, but it does make sense. I asked Ramsey whether the FBI offered advice to the people who drafted Measure 114 before all the words were set in stone.
So generally speaking, and I don't want to speak to any ongoing discussions or even discussions before, but generally speaking, the FBI's Office of General Counsel and the Department of Justice make themselves very available when state laws such as this are being proposed. So I know that that was the case here in Oregon. I know that's the case across the country because Oregon is not the only situation that something like this is being faced. My concern, though, has been this claim that, well, the FBI is flatly refusing to do this. That's just not true.
The other piece, so what would Oregon's legislature have to do to make it okay?
You know, I don't have a really solid answer for that just yet because, again, there still has to be some legal analysis. And that's by big Department of Justice, big FBI, not the FBI here in Oregon. But I think the ultimate goal still is, okay, where is 114 not easily comporting with that federal law? And let's make sure that that gets there and that there is no ability to claim that this is some lack of partnership on the part of the federal government, let alone the FBI specifically, towards our partners in the state of Oregon.
Okay. You're saying we'll do whatever we can, whatever the law will allow us to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
So even if the Harney County judge rules that 114 does not violate the state constitution, there are still some wrinkles that need to be ironed out before 114 can be fully implemented. And that's not to mention the appeals that will most certainly come no matter which way the judge rules in the near future. With some speculating, this case could go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. We'll see. So what do you think about all that? We can tell you one thing, the drama surrounding the measure is far from over. We'd love to hear your thoughts, though. Email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. Now, let's follow up on a story we brought you last week regarding an attack at Hazelbrook Middle School, which is part of the Tigard-Tualatin School District. You may remember a video of the attack went viral online, with many claiming the attacking student was transgender and that other young girls at the school were in danger. In the days that followed, multiple school threats came in via social media and email, threats of shootings and even a bombing. School was evacuated and canceled for 2 days. Last night marked the first school board meeting since then. Many parents wanted to speak to the school board in person, but the meeting was moved online. In fact, the district office closed early because of reports of a planned rally there. Some parents showed up in person anyway, fed up with what they described as a pattern of violence with little to no accountability.
We had a number of parents show up here tonight, including the mom of the girl that was attacked. And you know what I found out tonight that was very concerning to me is not a single one of you reached out to that mom.
Our students, particularly those at Hazelbrook, are afraid of using bathrooms. They get anxious to walk down the halls, and they encounter violence on a daily basis. Violence without consequences.
Hazelbrook Middle School is consumed by a culture of tolerance towards hate and violence, disguised as healing and restorative.
Another parent said in past years, another student threatened to bring a gun to school and kill his child. He said after reaching out to Hazelbrook leadership, he never got a response and had to get in touch with local police.
Clearly, current policies regarding physical violence are not working. They're not deterring violence. Students at Hazelbrook know that aggressors have no real consequences and that violence simply continues.
We heard something similar from Hazelbrook parents after our story last week. Roxanne wrote, "Fighting is rampant, bullying is rampant, student misconduct of all kinds is being underreported. Many of our children are afraid to go to school. Our teachers are struggling and test scores are tanking. Our school is at the breaking point." But back to the school board meeting last night, you'd think that maybe they'd have a long discussion about the issue and the forces both inside and outside the school that are disrupting things. But mostly, No, the board noted the comments and without deciding anything, moved on to other business. I guess one board member did reference the attack and said she's looking forward to policy work on it in the future. So we'll see if any changes are on the way at Hazelbrook. As we've reported, the attacking student in the viral video, as well as another juvenile accused of making a threat, have been arrested, and school is back in session. Coming up next on the story, you've likely seen some of the tiny homes meant to help homeless people throughout the city of Portland. Our Blair Best got her hands on a report that shows how many people those safe rest villages helped in the past year and how some neighbors feel about it. That's coming up next when the story returns. Let's get to some of your thoughts from a story we brought you last night. It was all about a program in Denver that gives people between $50 to $1,000 a month with no strings attached to see if it can be a solution to the homeless crisis. It's called the Denver Basic Income Project. Here's how it works. 820 homeless people who applied for the program were randomly selected and put into 3 different groups. Group A received $1,000 a month for 12 months. Group B received $6,500 up front and then $500 per month for the next 11 months. And Group C is considered a comparison group. They only got $50 a month for a year. The results we showed you yesterday were preliminary 6-month numbers for the year-long program. But the highlights included more people housed, fewer people using emergency shelters and emergency rooms, and more people getting full-time jobs. A negative finding included every single one of the payment groups reporting a decline in their overall mental health. Now, a few of you think early results from the program are promising and encouraging, but you're waiting for the final report to come out next summer. Yeah, I know, us too. Here's what one viewer named Kim thinks about it.
I wouldn't have a problem with that if we made sure that the money didn't go towards drugs or alcohol. A lot of times when people get cash of any kind, that's where the money ends up going. Giving people money isn't always the answer. As a social worker, I give people money all the time. That doesn't solve their problem. I just don't even know what the answer is, but most of these people who I've worked with who are homeless don't want to go into housing where somebody's going to tell them what to do. Handing them money, like Denver doing, is kind of scary.
All right, thank you, Kim, for your insights. Pete wants nothing to do with it, writing, you know, Pat, I have one pension that pays me just over $1,000 per month. That pension cost me 18 years of hard, dedicated work. And it is taxed. Sure, let's just give the same amount to drug addicts and those who won't work, tax-free, I'm sure, and see if it gets them off the street. Lunacy. And a few of you asked about eligibility for the program in Denver, and so here's what we found on that. People had to be 18 or older and accessing services from a homeless agency in the Denver area. They cannot have severe and unaddressed mental illness or drug addiction. That was measured using a standardized questionnaire, by the way, called Basis 24. Yeah, we give you all those details. And they have to be experiencing homelessness. The project used a broad definition for that, which said it would be people without fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence. The way the money was spent was not tracked. We'll end with this comment from William, who echoes what several others of you told us. When are we going to stop giving people money for doing nothing? We seem to think money is the answer. Our homeless funding seems to show something different. Turning now to our homeless crisis and the tiny villages for homeless people scattered across our city. They're called Safe Rest Villages, and the city's team that oversees the project just released a big progress report on how many people they've helped over the past year. And while some of the numbers do look promising, depending on your perspective, I guess, neighbors surrounding some of those villages tell us they are still suffering. Here's Blair Best.
Homelessness and crime isn't a new problem for this North Portland neighborhood, just south of Lombard Street off the Peninsula Crossing Trail.
So I've got a lot of my tools stolen, my trailer, my trucks, everything hitting. It's all happened in the past 4 years or so.
So when the city of Portland built a Safe Rest Village for homeless people there, you can probably guess how neighbors responded.
Not good.
It's very unpleasant.
You know, I had some pretty mixed feelings about it. I wasn't excited.
The village opened in May and has room for up to 60 homeless people. The city is paying the California-based group Urban Alchemy to run it.
The traffic here is quite busy.
There's been a lot of drugs going through here. A lot of people walking here at night, making noises.
However, across the street,
I'm really close to it, yeah.
Lindsay Laughlin has a different experience.
If I'm being honest of judging how things were last year without Safe Rest versus now in this neighborhood, it seems like cleaner, safer. I see just less drug use.
The city has spent $4.2 million on the Peninsula Crossing Village. That's more than any other Safe Rest Village. There are currently 7 located across the city. Portland's Safe Rest Village team released a report this week on 5 of them, since 2 just recently opened. According to the city's report, in the past year, 345 homeless people moved off the streets and into a village. 143 of them left. 70 went into temporary or permanent housing. Safe Rest Village staff collected 169 documents like birth certificates and IDs, something that's critical to getting people jobs or housing. Still, though, neighbors say more needs to be done to help them.
They just keep telling us, you know, they're going to work on it, they're going to work on it, and we haven't really seen any changes at all.
I felt very like a mixed bag of emotions where it's like I'm happy that people have a place to rest safe, but at the same time, it would be nice if it wasn't in my backyard.
We talked with the city's Safe Rest Village team today, and they declined to comment on this report as they're presenting it to City Council tomorrow. But we did talk with them about the neighbors' concerns. They say work is ongoing as they engage with residents and work to build respect between the housed and the unhoused. I also want to point out that we're told at least one family in this neighborhood has sold their home and moved because of this village, and that others are now talking of doing the same. In North Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
All right, thank you, Blair. Coming up next on The Story, it's part 2 of our Crabbing in Crisis series. Last night we told you why the Bering Sea snow crab season is canceled for the 2nd year in a row. Tonight we're looking at the impact that will have on the seafood industry in the Pacific Northwest, and the effects stretch farther than you might think. Details when The Story returns.
When you throw a rock in this pond in the seafood industry in Washington or in Alaska that's partially owned down here in Washington, the ripple effect does not stop.
The Alaska Department of Fish and Game recently announced plans for 2 lucrative fisheries. Pacific Northwest crabbers who fish the Bering Sea can catch Bristol Bay red king crab. But snow crab, no. That season is canceled for the 2nd year in a row. That comes as the seafood industry faces challenges, including rising fuel prices and a turbulent economy. In part 2 of our Environment Northwest series, Crabbing in Crisis, Erica Zucco tells us how all of this is affecting crabbers, seafood stands, and your dinner table.
Pike Place Market's oldest fish stand.
We had crab, salmon, halibut.
People from across the country.
St. Louis, where, Missouri?
Come just to get a taste of an industry so iconic to the Northwest.
You gotta feed the people, it's what we do.
City Fish co-owner Neil Brebner has sold fish in the market for 2 decades and says costs of doing business have soared.
The increase in general has been amazing. I mean, it's just through the roof. It's the cost of diesel going up, just everything in general, demand, the prices have really just gone through the roof.
Crabbing closures added to the challenges. Fortunately for City Fish, they sell a wide variety of seafood.
Here, try that. That's our smoked salmon right there.
It's harder when your business centers around crab, like Captain Mark Castos.
We're family owned, and it's these closures have been pretty tough.
He says closures are just part of the problem.
Everything kind of changed this last year. A lot of the seafood prices all went down, so it was kind of like a double whammy there.
His crew in Seattle's Ballard neighborhood is gearing up to hit the water after a year of making do with work like tendering cod. But as for fishing king crab, they'll be doing it differently.
This year we're actually combining my brother's boat's crew and our boat's crew to make it worthwhile. With the quota, luckily there's enough crab on the grounds to have a fishery. But the fishery's not big enough to send, two large boats.
Fewer boats means less fuel, less maintenance work, less supplies, less money spent here.
Each one of those businesses employs 20 or 30 people, and that ripple effect keeps going out. You get down to the restaurants and everything else, fish aren't there to be served. Now you're talking about restaurant owners and the different wait staff at a restaurant being affected by it.
Casey McManus started fishing at age 5, later starring on Deadliest Catch, and basing his business in Seattle. He says it's not just livelihoods at risk, it's a family's chance to enjoy healthy seafood.
Unfortunately, with the current state of economy, I think it's people are going up to the cash register and they might have a piece of fish in there, but they have their milk, their butter, their eggs, and their cheese. And by the time they get that $100 bill spent for one little basket of groceries, they can't afford the fish. And that's not necessarily their fault, it's the state of our economy right now.
Alaska researchers are working to restore crab populations in the Bering Sea, but businesses hope rapid relief will aid workers in the forms of federal aid, habitat conservation, and people prioritizing fresh-caught fish of all kinds, which are tiding some crabbers over for now.
Buy wild Alaskan seafood. Do not go out and go to a restaurant where you don't know where your seafood came from.
From the Alaskan coast to boats in Seattle's Ballard neighborhood, the return of some Bristol Bay king crab and momentum to restore snow crab makes many hopeful.
Go up there and have just a safe, productive season and, get paid a fair price.
Those who feel at home on the water will return to it however they can. There is sweat and heart and soul in this industry. And even with the challenges staying afloat,
Anybody else want to try a salmon with crab?
there's a sense of adventure and pride.
The action's amazing. I love just meeting people from literally all over the world. Like every day is different.
In the careers and lifestyles they love. For Environment Northwest, I'm Erica Zucco.
Thank you very much. I'd love some crab. Can you believe it's already this time of year? The KGW Great Toy Drive is coming soon. Last year, you helped us donate more than 35,000 toys to local kids. This year, we want to help even more. You can join the effort now. Just go to kgw.com/toy to sign up. We'll send a collection kit so you and your organization can help us collect toys for local families. Again, just go to kgw.com/toy to get started. That's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember the story, our collective story? Well, that never ends. The good stuff is coming up next, and I'll see you right back here tomorrow night, where our big story is a big-time investigation from our Kyle Eboshi that you are not going to want to miss. It's going to be awesome. I'll see you then. Have a good night.